Hey there guys, it's Zologe here, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most, prominent decks of the format right now, which is Nekroz. I made a deck profile of this last time, for a while back, but that was not when I really did know what I was doing with the deck, as I haven't seen it play. But now that I know what the deck is doing and how the deck functions a bit more, I've managed to come up with a decent deck profile for you guys. So you can kind of see this as the reboot deck, basically. So without further ado, let's go into the deck profile as much as we go along. So first we go for one Nekroz sorcerer, well, great source of Nekroz. Basically when he's tributed by a card effect, you can add one spellcast type ritual monster from your deck to your hand. So basically Valk and your Unicorn, that's going to be your main targets. Well, you can also go for Gungnir, but Gungnir's not going to be the one you're going to be searching for a lot, because it's pretty terrible for the most part. I mean, it's good against freaking Clifforts, but when you're facing off against Clifforts, your main guy is going to be Valk anyway, so yeah. And also he gets an effect when he's banished. When he's banished, you can summon one Nekroz monster from your deck to your graveyard, which is, kind of decent considering you have things like Exomirror, as well as Valk, which banishes shit from the grave, so that's pretty useful because he replaces himself when he's banished, which is pretty decent. But that's not going to be the main reason why I use him at all. Next we go for the triple Senju and triple Manju. These guys are staples. They basically search out everything you need. Because, Senju basically searches out your Bryonic, which searches out whatever else you need, unless you want to summon the guy. The same thing goes for the Manju. He basically searches out your Bryonic, or any of your spell cards, should you really need them. However, both of them basically fill the same function. You just go for this guy, which then searches out that guy, which then goes for one of the ritual spells if you need them. Which, is a pretty decent thing. That's one of the main, reasons why this deck is so good, is because of how fucking consistent it is. It's so consistent that you're basically playing with an open hand because you're constantly searching. Next we go for one Jin release of rituals. I don't feel like, and this is a popular opinion, that you don't really need more than one. Because, remember, you can use it once from your hand and then you can banish it from your graveyard with Nekroz, with a regular Nekroz Exomirror to go for another play. To go for something like a Colossus, for instance, and go for the Jin Lock, which is, a pretty good deal, and it's one of the more difficult situations to get out of, unless you have basically things like Raigeki, Darkhold, or a Book of Muna on hand. So, yeah. Next we go for the double SCHRITT. This is basically a one-cost tribute for any of your Nekroz ritual monsters, which is, a pretty good deal, and the reason why you run it is basically because it searches out any other warrior ritual Nekroz when he is tributed. So that is really awesome. You can search out things like Brios, you can search out your Trish, you can search out your Colossus with it, which is, a pretty decent deal. However, he does not have an effect when he's banished, which is, kind of but at the same time, he's still a very good search card. You get a plus off of him, which is really nice. Next, go for the one Decisive Armor. This guy can be the difference between winning and losing a game. I only run one, though, because, once it you activate its effect, it's basically game anyway. That extra 1000 attack and defense can really just change any situation. And besides, when you have Valk, do you really need a hand trap that just increases 1000 attack and defense? The nice thing about it, though, is that it increases defense, too. So Klaus becomes a 3300 wall, which is absolutely ridiculous. Next we go for the one Trishula. Earlier we thought that running triple Trishula was the way to go, but apparently not, considering we have things like Cycle as well as Nekroz of Unicorn to bring him back. And he is so recyclable that you only really need one. Next we go for the triple Valkyrus, the most powerful card of the deck in my opinion, aside from Bryonic. Because of its ability to shut down the battle phase of your opponent, essentially. You take away their ability to attack, which is one of the main ways of dealing damage, and if you can do that, you basically have the game in your hand. Because you control the flow of the battle phase and the control of damage, and this is, it doesn't matter what your opponent does, as long as they attack a monster, it doesn't matter if it's a monster or if it's directly. You can just discard this guy and banish a card from your graveyard, and bam! You basically negated the entire battle phase, and that is absolutely insane. Since you have control over what your opponent does during battle phase, that is essential to why this deck is so powerful, in my opinion. Your opinion might be completely different. It might be things like the Bryonic being able to search everything in the deck, or anything like that. Next, we'll go for one Gungnir. Now, Gungnir is not that great. Sure, it's a discard effect to make one monster vulnerable to card destruction or monster destruction in any sort of way by battle, by card effect, is actually pretty decent. Its second effect to pop scales, basically, that's what you use it for, is pretty good, but Valk just does the whole battle phase negation thing better. So, I mean, they're just gonna, Cliff Fortress is gonna basically make the scale again next turn, and then they're just gonna rock your shit anyway. So it's basically just there for the Cliff Fort matchup, because it doesn't work against anything else, really. Because you're most likely going to go for Trishula in most of the cases. Next, to go for the triple Brionac. This is a really nice card to have. But you can just discard him from your hand and add any Nekroz ritual monster from your deck to your hand except himself, which means that the deck has insane toolboxing. You can add Gungnirs, you can add Valkyrises, you can add your Trishula, you can add Klaus, which is mostly going to be the one you're going to be adding the most. And then, of course, the Unicorns, depending on what your matchup looks like, or what you have on your hand, rather. So, if you're a good player, the Brionac is definitely the most powerful card. And its on-field effect isn't bad either. Bouncing back 2 monsters from the extra monsters on the field that's from the extra deck is a pretty good deal. And it does so costlessly, which is ridiculous. It just the condition that's kind of doesn't really work against the deck in the mirror, but it works everywhere else, which is actually pretty cool. Next, to go for the triple Unicorn. My hands down, aside from Brionac, the most versatile card of the deck. You can make rank 4s with it. You can recruit back monsters from your graveyard with it. You can just have a stun card on board with a lock on it. And stuff like that. And it's a nice beater to boot. It has 2300 attack, which is not bad. And under the influence of Decisive Armor, it becomes 33, which is enough to run over most monsters in the game, which is, you know, a pretty decent deal. And of course, you run triples of it because it's so vital to the deck. And of course, the play with Kaleido Mirror and Arclight makes the card that much better. And finally, we run one Klaus, which you can discard to search out any of your ritual spells. And on top of that, he is the source of your Ginlock. And it's just a fantastic card to have. Yeah, I only run one though because he tends to become a dead card late game. You really just want to see this guy as early as possible and then never see him again. So yeah. Next to go for the spells, we run one Raigeki and double Dark Hole. This is for the very, very prominent mirror match that you're going to be facing off against this deck, because the Ginlock basically screws you over. So having things like Raigeki and Dark Hole are the easiest outs to the Ginlock. And we really want to max out that as much as possible, because they neither target, but they do destroy. So if they happen to have a Gungnir on hand, you're basically boned, unless you can get rid of it with a Trish or something. Because Trish, as far as I know, does not target and it does not destroy. Well, actually, no, you can't even summon a Trish because they're... so these are basically main answers, as well as this. But we're going to be going into that later. Next, we go for the triple preparation of rites. As I said, this deck searches a hell of a lot, and this is basically get Brionac, get any ritual monster that you want. It's your gateway into everything, if not one of the Monjus does so. This card is fantastic late game, because it basically has your toolbox for anything, as long as you still have one Brio in your deck. Or at least if you have one Nekroz card in your graveyard, this card allows you to go into anything in your entire deck, which is, you know, a pretty decent deal, because you can search out a Brio and then search out the Kaleido Mirror and then just go off from there. Next, we run the triple Examir. Examir is a pretty decent card because of its, you know, it's a single card that just brings out any of the, you know, the rituals that you have. It's the staple card of the deck, basically. And you can banish one. If you don't have control of any monsters, you can banish one. You can banish this card from your graveyard and one Nekroz monster, and then add one Nekroz spell card from your deck to your hand, which is, you know, a pretty decent deal. You can search for itself, basically, which is absolutely ridiculous. They can search itself, and things like Kaleido Mirror and Cycle, which is a really good deal. And of course, the Kaleido Mirror, this is the most powerful card of the deck, I dare say. It basically makes any ritual monster you want costlessly. And dumping things like, you know, shooting Quasar Dragons into the graveyard for an Exabeetle play later on is absolutely ridiculous. And let's talk a little bit about what you can actually dump with it. You can also dump things like Rainbow Light, which then adds another ritual spell card from your deck to your hand, which is pretty good. Well, actually, it adds either ritual monster or ritual spell, but most likely it's going to be the ritual monster, because you can go Brionek, into Klaus, into Ritual Spell. So whatever you search, you're gonna basically have access to a Ritual Spell wherever you go. Next, of course, we run the Triple Illusion, well, the cycle. It's basically a monster reborn into form of a ritual spell. You basically summon back a ritual, Nekroz ritual monster from your graveyard by tributing monsters, or potentially banishing things like djinns in your graveyard for the summon of, say, a Klaus to put a lock on your opponent again. As for the other like staple spells, we run 1 Mystical Space Typhoon and 1 Book of Moon to deal with a nasty djinn lock. See, I have 4 of those. That's how prominent that lock is, and I hate it. As for the extra deck, we run 2 Shooting Quasar Dragons, 1 Star Eater. We run 2 Shooting Star Dragons, triple Arclight. Then we run 1 Exabeetle, 1 Castel, 1 Excision Knight, 1 Lavolval Chain, actually double Lavolval Chain, 1 Abyss Dweller, and finally 1 Leviair. And that rounds up the deck, guys. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'm out.